Hey everybody, what is going on? Serial Overdrive here, and today we're going to be talking about something different from my usual topic. We're going to be talking about coronavirus. So I did a video about coronavirus maybe a few weeks back. At the time, it was pretty small, and there's still a lot of theories and conspiracy theories out there, and I thought it would just be a good time to sort of make a video to address that and dispel some of the fear that people are having. And I thought it would be a good time to do it again because, as you can see, the number of cases has jumped to 78,000. And at this point, just because of people being asymptomatic and the fact that there are a lot of people out there who have not been tested and have just sort of gotten the virus and cured themselves, because that is something that's happening, it would be a good time to make another video. The total confirmed cases is probably over 100,000. I think pretty much everybody is saying that right now, so I think I'm pretty safe in saying that right now. Total confirmed cases stands at 78,000 people. Most of them are still in mainland China, but you can see some other groups popping up that it's very worrisome. So yeah, let's just get into it, right? So big thing, there's a few things going on. First, you can see right now, mainland China, there's 76,936 cases. So if we jump over here, this is where the majority of cases have happened, still in mainland China. And there's a few reasons behind that. China has done a great job of sort of quarantining themselves and quarantining the areas. A lot of people are being very, I don't know, they're being very like, pessimistic about the Chinese actions, and they're thinking that the Chinese government knew more than they let on. But honestly, if you look at these numbers, the Chinese government has done an amazing job of actually containing this virus. They locked down about 10% of the world's population. That's something that pretty much no other country could do. I don't know if there is another country out there, maybe North Korea, but I don't know if there's any other country out there that could lock down such a large city, such a large population center to the extent that China has done. Some people are saying it's a human rights violation, but whatever it is, they've done quite a bit to contain the virus. You got to remember, we're probably about 7 weeks in, and the virus is just starting to pop up in other countries. Now, part of this is because there's a long incubation period, but the incubation period is not 7 weeks, which means China has done a great job of containing things. So hats off to them. Obviously, the problem is that in this day and age, there's a lot of people taking flights everywhere, and you cannot screen every passenger on a plane. So, yeah, there's not much you can do about this. You can see most of the cases are still in Asia. One of the big issues that we're seeing now is that there's a bunch of cases that have recently appeared in Italy, and no one's really tracked down who started that. There's one person that they're saying, I don't know why this. Oh, total deaths 3, 1 recovered. So yeah, I don't know why people. Yeah, we have not tracked down where it came from. A lot of people are saying that it came from some Italian colleagues who met with someone from China, but that person has tested negative for the coronavirus. What this means is that they currently do not have coronavirus. It is 100% possible that they got the coronavirus, fought it off naturally, and now there's a bunch of cases in Italy from people who got it from them. And again, even in Italy, they're saying that these deaths, at least one of them, is not, I believe currently is not confirmed to be from coronavirus. It's someone that died that had coronavirus. This would be something like, if you have the common cold, it is still possible for you to get hit by a bus. Your cause of death would be getting hit by the bus, not because you've got a common cold. But right now, I believe if someone dies and they have coronavirus, the reason of death is listed as coronavirus, assuming they weren't hit by a bus or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, there are some worrying things going on right now, and I wanted to make this video too because last time I talked about this, I was saying it's not I didn't say it wasn't a big deal, but I didn't think this was as big of a deal as people were making it out to be. And now I'd almost go the opposite way. People are acting like this isn't a big deal, but there's some worrying signs, and I think people should probably just be a little bit more cautious. That would be my recommendation. Not that I'm a doctor or anything like that and should be making recommendations, but I figure, yeah, let's talk about it. So what's going on right now? 76,000 cases mainland China. What we're seeing is those cases are actually starting to decline. Nobody really knows yet, or I'm sure somebody does, but the public in general does not know yet if this is just because of testing measures or people are being tested less or anything like that. But you can see in China there's been 2,000 442 deaths, 23,000 people that have recovered. Again, the number recovered is probably a lot higher because it is possible for people to get this virus and then recover without ever visiting the hospital or ever being tested. In fact, if you're in Wuhan or something like that and your whole city's under quarantine, it makes more sense to just stay inside, not contaminate anyone, not go to the hospital, and just try and fight this on your own. So this number, this 23,000 number, could be a lot higher. The total death number is likely not higher. There are a lot of conspiracy theories out there and people saying that they're cremating bodies by the thousands, but I highly doubt that. At this point, if we were seeing that, if China was covering up the death count, you'd be seeing it in other places, right? You've got a cruise ship with cruise ship with 600, over 600 people that have caught the virus, and only 2 of those people have died. You've got South Korea with 600 cases, 6 deaths. You've got Italy with 3 deaths, 155 cases. Japan has 135. And not all of these cases are new, so we would not be seeing these death numbers. And again, Singapore actually has had a number of cases since the beginning. And if you look at that, total deaths is sitting at 0. So this does show us a few things, and we're going to sort of extrapolate from these statistics later. But yeah, basically, I don't think China's covering anything up. They're probably bringing in these cremation units, or they're not called cremation units. They're basically industrial-sized burners that can burn medical waste. That's something that you would need if you're dealing with coronavirus, because you're not going to want to clean anything. You're not going to want to take the time to clean out hospital gowns or anything like that. If you have extras, you're just going to want to burn what you have, put new ones on, and just keep going like that. Because, again, that is another vector for the virus to spread on, right? Like, I cough, touch a door handle, you can get it from that, but it's the same thing. If I lay on a bed, there's a good chance that there's that virus in the bed if I've got coronavirus. So it makes sense that they're going to bring in machines to actually burn all this stuff, right? Like, that's just, that's sort of common sense, I'd say. Yeah. So yeah, other things that are going on, right? Obviously, mainland China, cases are going down. We're not 100% sure why, but cases are going down. That's very good. We've got a lot of people recovering from this, but we do have quite a few deaths, and this has shown us just how hard this is going to hit hospitals and sort of the medical system if things do go viral and hit this sort of number here, right? If you've got pandemics happening in other countries or all around the world, this shows you what's going to happen at hospitals. And again, mainland China, I'd estimate that there's probably over 100,000 cases. So this shows that the total deaths at percent is probably going to be a little bit lower. I'm guessing that this virus is probably killing less than 2% of the people who get it. And there's people that have actually got the virus, tested positive for the virus, and then never shown any symptoms. This is scary because it shows that the virus can be spread through perfectly healthy people, because you could have the virus in you, be fighting it off, and never know that you fought it off. This can happen with a common cold or anything like that. Sometimes you wake up, you've got a bit of a sore throat, and then it just goes away. Sometimes that is your body just naturally fighting something off. That can happen with coronavirus or with any virus, really. Now, we've got 634 cases on the cruise ship. This is likely linked to just how that was handled. It seems like the quarantine measures were not adequate. There's another doctor that went onto the ship and analyzed everything and talks about how these numbers were definitely, how the quarantine was definitely not handled correctly. On a cruise ship, you've got a lot of people in a tight, confined space. When you've got these people all touching, talking with each other, touching the same thing, you're going to have viruses spread that way. And one of the problems, you've got everybody contained on the ship. People are stuck in their rooms. They're probably not getting as much sleep because they're worried, so their immune systems are just a little bit lower. And then you've got people walking between rooms, handing out meals and getting things signed, and everybody's touching the same pencil and things like that, and you're just spreading the virus more and more and more. Honestly, this was probably it was a good way to contain the virus, but it was a horrible way to contain the virus to one population of 3,000 people. You can see on that cruise ship, 20% of people were have actually gotten the coronavirus, and there's probably more people that are going to be testing positive for it in the future. So that is definitely not how you want to handle this thing. It's definitely worrying, but I think there's a lot to be learned there about how quarantines should be handled. If you look at the cruise ship versus China, a province of over 1 million people in China, you do not have a 20% infection rate. So I think we should be throwing out that statistic with the cruise ship. And thankfully, it seems like people have been disembarked from that cruise ship. I think there's still something like 1,000 people on the ship, but overall, that's sort of clearing itself up, and they're getting people to legitimate quarantines. They're going to handle this a little bit better than just locking everyone on a ship. No fault of Japan, they probably weren't ready for this. You've got 3,000 people on their doorstep. What are you going to do? You can't let those people out, although it sounds like they might have near the end. But it's just, it was a complicated situation for them. And the fact that they only have 135 cases in Japan shows that at least for now, it seems to have been contained there. So the worrying place, probably the place that's really taken off the most, is South Korea. In South Korea, it sounds like there was someone who went to a church or a cult, and they had coronavirus. The patient was supposed to be tested. They didn't want to be tested. They weren't tested because that's how things work in a democracy or in a Western, more westernized society. They didn't want to be tested. They weren't tested. They went to a meeting and they spread it just among those people because of how the church interactions are. There's a lot of people probably shaking hands and things like that. In Catholicism, there's this thing called I think it's the sign of the peace or whatever, but everybody shakes hands, right? So that's, they could have done something similar like that, and it's just one person shakes hands with another, and then people after church are talking to each other. And generally, I don't know how it is in South Korea, but in the U.S., generally it's an older population going to church, so they're a little bit more susceptible. So again, that number is huge because that infection sort of just spread out from there. You've got 2 different clusters going on in South Korea, and it looks like things are just ramping up. It's not good there. You can see this daily increase. Again, you had this sharp spike here, but it has gone down, but you've still got a lot of cases happening other places in the world, and that is worrying. So obviously in China, things are looking a little bit better, which is good, but South Korea, it's, I think they've had over 100 new cases confirmed today, and that is a huge number of cases when you've only got 600 people confirmed. There's probably more like 1,000 confirmed, but if those numbers are right, if there's, let's say, 1,000 people that have it and 100 people getting it every day, that's a 10% increase, which is huge. And you're going to see that go exponential at some point if it keeps on this way. Luckily, people in South Korea, it sounds like, are self-quarantining. So they're sort of staying indoors and taking it easy for a bit. If they can manage to do this for 14 days or something like that, who knows? Maybe they won't have any problems. And the other issue is you've got a new bunch of cases popping up in Italy. Again, like I said, these cases have no known links to China. There's one person who had a meeting who they suspect might have gotten the virus. But again, it's hard to tell how they got it. The person from China could have had the virus and transferred it that way. It could have been through a pen or something like that. Maybe the person from China met with someone who was infected. That person touched something that they had. They went to Italy for a business meeting, and the person in Italy who got the virus touched that same thing. So it could be from there, but there's also the possibility that these cases in Italy are actually not linked to anyone from China. So what you're seeing right now is you're seeing a lot of people blaming China anytime someone pops up with the virus. But the fact is, if you look at this number, right, there's over 1,000 people outside of China who have gotten this virus. At this point, even though the virus started in China, it's not something that is self-contained to China. There's dots showing up all over the world that have this virus. So it could have come from anywhere. And again, the thing you've got to remember, there's a lot of people getting sick right now because it's flu and cold season. We cannot test everybody who has a cold, right? So the problem is, if you have a cold, you could have coronavirus. Not to scare you, but a lot of people who get the virus, they never really go past that point. They fight it off naturally and things are good. When someone does go through past that point, they get pneumonia or something like that, that is when people start testing, and those are sort of the cases that are going to show up. I think probably what happened in Italy, someone got the virus, obviously 3 people died, 1's recovered. Whoever got the virus went to the hospital, they were tested at that point, and that's when they realized sort of, we've got the coronavirus and this isn't good. And then they start testing a lot more people because they realize it's a thing, and the cases are just naturally going to jump. So maybe in Italy the numbers are 155 and they've been there for the last week, but we're just starting to test those 155 people. That's always a possibility. Outside of Italy, there is one other area that's sort of worrying, and that would be Iran. If you listen to the news, Iran is saying that this is a conspiracy to spread the virus to hurt elections. I don't think that's true. That sounds a little ridiculous. I don't know much about Iran. I know that the U.S. and Iran do not have good relations. Personally, I have nothing against the country, but I really don't think there's any sort of foreign national going around spreading coronavirus in Iran because they're hoping that it's going to get people sick and cause some sort of issue with the elections. I think what you're seeing right now is the government of Iran is worried because it turns out that when people are sick and dying, there's a lot of unrest in the country. And if this does turn into an outbreak, they need someone to blame. And if they don't have anyone to blame, they are going to get blamed, and that's going to be very bad for their government. And from what I've heard, there were already some protests over that plane that was shot down a couple months ago. 2 months ago, there was a plane that was shot down there, a Ukrainian airliner. If you guys don't remember, there's some tensions between the U.S. and Iran. The U.S. basically pushed Iran up and up and up, and we got to this point where, like, countries were literally like Iran launched missiles into Iraq, hit a U.S. base. Some soldiers were actually injured. Over 40, I believe, got like brain injuries. So that is a big number. So some people were injured. The U.S. did not retaliate, but Iran was sort of on the highest watch because they thought the U.S. might retaliate. And that led to a plane getting shot down. People were not happy about that because of how that was dealt with and how it was covered up. And there were protests and things like that. And the last thing Iran needs is another thing for people to be protesting over. And this could be it. So they're obviously worried about that, and they're looking to blame other countries. I could be wrong, but I don't believe this is another country's doing. And as you can see in Iran, there's a total of 8 deaths. Again, this is worrying because 8 deaths, 0 recovered, 43 cases. If that is true, the number of people who have gotten the virus and died in Iran is huge. If you hold those numbers, right, 8 people have died, 43 people have gotten the virus. We're sitting at almost a 25% death rate. If we extrapolate from this, that's likely not the case. More than likely, there's about 400 people in Iran who have the coronavirus and are spreading it, and they've only tracked down 43 cases. And again, in Iran, there's no known point of contact. They don't know how these people got it, and a lot of people who have died have apparently not left the country recently. So that is, it sounds like they're locking down the cities. It sounds like they're doing things right, and it sounds like maybe they've got a hold on this. Again, only time's going to tell. And sort of the worrying thing about Iran is not the fact that I don't know if Iran has the medical capabilities to deal with this virus. I'm guessing that they do, but if you look at the countries they border, there are a lot of places here that do not have those capabilities. You've got Afghanistan, Pakistan, you've got no, you don't have Yemen. All right, I'm bad with geography. You've got Iraq over here. It's not looking good because if these borders are crossed with the virus, there could be some issues. And again, you've got Georgia up here. These are all countries that, excuse me for saying it, are not extremely rich. How do you even have one case in Egypt that's confirmed? I mean, in Egypt that's confirmed. You've got cases in Israel too. That's the Diamond Princess. But yeah, in Egypt you've got one case that's confirmed, and that's it. Like, that doesn't mesh well, because if you've ever looked at Cairo on a map, if you've looked at the population, it is really squeezed into one sort of central point. So there are some worries about how these countries are dealing with things and what's going to happen. And look at this right here. Even in Lebanon, you've got cases. Like, it's sort of spreading. And if you look at this border, I know there's people that are crossing over from Lebanon to Syria. You can watch videos of that, people going there just to for humanitarian aid and stuff like that. But all it takes is one of them getting sick to spread it. And a lot of these countries are just not in the position of being able to handle this, right? You're talking about literal war zones, places that have just gotten out of a war. Like, that's not good. And you've got cases in India too. Again, India, you've got a lot of people who, you've got a huge population and you don't have the medical system to deal with them. And that is bad, because what's going to happen is these people are going to be out in the general population until, maybe until death, right? Spreading the virus, or until they're recovered, spreading the virus, because they just don't have the medical people, they don't have the medical supplies to treat everyone and to quarantine everybody. Now, people could self-quarantine. Is that going to happen, though? Who knows? I don't know what the vacation situation is like over in India, but I know here in the U.S. there's a lot of people that they could not take 2 weeks sick from work, right? And the chances are, if you have coronavirus, you probably need like 2 to 3 weeks to cure yourself of it. Could someone take 2 to 3 weeks off from work because they've got the coronavirus. Now, if you call into work and you say, hey, I've got the coronavirus, you're definitely going to get the time off. You might even get a month off, right? Like paid month off. They don't want it. But you can't call in because you've got a cough and say, hey, I might have the coronavirus. I've got a cough. People are going to tell you to come into work because you need to work. And that's a problem. I think what we're going to see here is I think you're going to see ramifications in places where there is a culture of sort of workaholics or working through a cold or virus. And you're going to see it spread that way because we just don't have the culture. We don't have the cultural mentality to do what China does and sort of say, hey, we're shutting down business for the next month or two so that we can sort of clear ourselves of this virus. I think if this started in New York City, it'd be way worse. And I don't think if it does come to New York City, I don't think we have the ability to prevent it from spreading. I don't think you could just shut down the city, even though that might be the best case, like the best thing to do. I don't think you could shut down New York City for however long Wuhan's been shut down for, 7 weeks now. I don't think you could do that. And that's worrying, right? I don't know. We're just going to have to sit tight and see what happens. Also, a few other things I want to touch on before we end this video. One, if you look at sort of how this is spread out, you're going to notice that the coronavirus tends to be in places where there's more smoking. I don't know if any of you guys have ever been to Italy, but there's quite a few people smoking there, especially the older population. That seems to be the people who are dying and getting the virus. Again, the older population is more likely to die, but it seems like it's a lot of smokers that are getting the virus, right? Same with China. People smoke a lot in China. Singapore, they don't smoke as much. You don't see the virus spreading as much. A lot of the people coming into Singapore that got the virus were like travelers that came in. That's how they got it. Australia, not too many people smoking. I know for a fact Australia has some of the highest cigarette prices in the world. It's like $40 a pack. That's crazy, I think. But yeah, you're not seeing it spread there, even though they're pretty close to China. And I know there's a lot of Chinese people going back and forth between Australia and China. So there's a likely case that people brought it into Australia, but they just might not be smoking as much, so that might be sort of what's saving them. Same with the U.S. I know personally the U.S. does not have a high smoking rate. You can see cases all over the states, but it hasn't really broken out here. So the way this virus works, at least from what I understand, is that it infects the upper and lower respiratory system. The lower respiratory system, that's where you get pneumonia from. Like, that's how people are getting pneumonia. It's because that lower respiratory sort of infection is really hitting them hard. The upper respiratory system, that's when you cough. That's how you spread it. Smoking is obviously going to weaken this. So in countries where you've got a lot of people smoking, you're seeing the virus spread just a little bit more and a little bit faster. If you look at all these countries that have actually high infection rates, they're pretty like big on smoking, right? Like South Korea, people smoke a lot. Italy, people smoke a good amount, especially the older population. Japan, I think people do smoke quite a bit there. I'm not sure about Singapore. I thought they didn't smoke as much, but now that I'm looking at it, I might be wrong. Hong Kong's an interesting one because they're so close to China, and I know I've been there. Like, people do smoke a lot. How it's not more widespread here is sort of interesting to me because it seems like it should be, but it's not. Maybe that indicates that the virus actually isn't as contagious as we thought. There were a lot of people going between Shenzhen and Hong Kong, and somehow it seems like they're okay. And one of the cases, it might just be that Hong Kong people aren't dying at such a frequent rate, right? You've only got 2 deaths there. So maybe that's just the case. Yeah, I don't know. Only time's going to tell, but yeah, there's definitely some things to be worried about, and there's definitely some false information out there, right? Like the U.S. government, I doubt, is spreading this in Iran. And while there are some pretty big issues with this, I don't think it's time to panic yet. If you wanted to take precautionary measures, probably the big thing to do would be to stock up on supplies like medicine and stuff like that, because China's been shut down for a while. Those factories are not making this medicine anymore. So if you go ahead and stock up on that, it can't hurt. Plus, that's stuff that you're going to be using already. Food supplies, I wouldn't really worry about that too much. If your city's going to go into quarantine, make sure you got a week of food or something like that. But I don't think it's come to that point where we need to be pulling things off the shelves. But hey, if you want to buy an extra bottle of Tylenol or something like that, it's probably a safe bet. Anyways, I hope this was informative, and I hope for some of you guys out there who are watching this that this actually gave you some information. What I want to do is spread information about the coronavirus in sort of a non-fear-mongering way. I see a lot of people out there just screaming and saying this is the end, and I'm trying to be sort of a voice of reason, but a voice of caution too. So for now, there's not really anything you can do if you're in the U.S. or France or Poland or anywhere that really doesn't have an infection. If you're in Italy or if you're in South Korea, maybe it's time to just stay indoors a little bit more and try and work from home. If you're anywhere else in the world, though, it hasn't really come there, and you've just got to sit back, watch the news, and hope that this all blows over. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching, and hopefully I'll be coming back in another week or two with good news saying that everything's clear, and maybe I won't even need to make a video. That would be the best case scenario. Thanks for watching, and hopefully this number just stops. As you can see here too, the number of infections is going down. But again, this could be indicative of China having cured their situation and things sort of ramping up outside of China. Also, this stat is just because how China registered coronavirus sickness has changed to be more informative. So that's why you had that spike there. But otherwise, you can see the numbers are not going exponential as far as new cases. If you look at the actual, even this is not going exponential. So that is a good sign. Anyways, peace.